This is Lisa Lodi, National Director for the Northeast and Southeast Divisions. Also joining me on this call is Jordan Montanino, National Director for the West and Central Divisions, as well as Chris Perry, National Vice President, and Catherine Henzelka, Program Support Coordinator. Throughout this WebEx, you'll also be hearing from a few of your peers from around the country. Today's topic is the ultimate guest experience. Most of our trainings deal with raising money at your galas and social events, but today we want to talk about creating the ultimate guest experience, which will make your guests come back year after year and potentially increase the dollars that they are giving to MDA through your event. Today's training is a WebEx where all staff are muted automatically. If you have a specific question that you would like to ask, please type it in the chat window. If we have time to get to the answers during this WebEx, we will. If we don't have time, we will answer your questions in a fact sheet and send it out to everyone after the WebEx is completed. We are recording this WebEx today so that you will be able to go back and review it again or share it with other members of your staff if you see fit. The Distinguished Events Resource Center has many great pieces of information for you to take a look at relating to guest experiences. There is information on some different ways to communicate with your guests and great videos from Kathy Kingston on auctions and making the most of your gala events and so much more. We really hope that you take a few minutes and explore the Resource Center on a regular basis. Let's talk about what a guest wants from their experience at a gala. What are their expectations? They want an experience that is different from other galas. We all know that many of our guests also attend other galas in the community, and we want the MDA Gala to be different. Guests want the gala to be fun. We want our galas to be the topic of discussion the next time they chat with their friends or their coworkers. Guests want the opportunity to hang out with friends, socialize, and network with business associates. Most of this is done during the VIP reception and the general cocktail reception. Logistically, the gala should run smoothly and flawlessly. Guests don't want to stand in lines at registration or at the bar. They want to be treated as if they are royalty. Guests at fundraising galas want a decent meal. It doesn't have to be extraordinary, but decent. People who go to a lot of these galas don't expect lobster and steak. They know that they are attending a fundraising benefit. And lastly, and where MDA has the potential of raising a lot of money, is the fact that guests want to be moved emotionally. They want to hear about the cause and be moved by videos that they watch or see and by the ambassadors that they hear from and meet at the gala. It's important to know that a guest experience begins long before they actually arrive at the gala. It begins from the moment they hear about the event or are invited to sit at a corporate table. It's very important that you have clear communication with your guests. That is an essential factor that weighs heavily on the overall experience. All guests want and need to know things like attire. What do they wear to the event? Where do they park? Is there valet parking or is there public parking? What to do once they arrive at the venue? Where do they report to and at what time? What will they need to know for guest registration? Do they register by their own name or by their company? Do they need to put a credit card on file? Don't give them the option, simply let them know that they will be collecting credit card information at guest registration. And because of that, their experience at auction checkout will run much smoother and easier. Make it all a positive experience for them. Get them engaged as soon as they know they are attending the event. Auction information, the different revenue enhancers or activities, information about the mission moments, entertainment, guest speakers, let them know all of that information ahead of time. And then if your event has a website that you can direct guests to, that's a real plus. You can have information about your corporate sponsors. A lot of times these websites will have past event photos so that your guests will really get a flavor of what the event is all about.
And as Lisa just said, a guest experience occurs before they arrive at the gala. And one of the ways that that experience begins, and one of the ways that we can communicate information to them, is through some guest newsletters. And there's some really good examples of guest newsletters on the Distinguished Events Resource Center, including a series of Milwaukee Black and Blue Ball guest newsletters that you can use in advance of your event, and also a great Boston Muscle Team post-event newsletter. And whether it's before or after your event, newsletters should be sent to your corporate sponsors, your table captains, your guests, your committee members, and your volunteers, as there's all kinds of pertinent information included in those newsletters, such as information and specifics about the event, including timing, attire, etc., some fundraising opportunities and highlights, corporate sponsorship recognition, mission moments, and information on entertainment and special guests or speakers. So on the next slide, we're going to take a look at an example of one of these newsletters. And I know that this is a little bit difficult for you to see, but here's an example of a great email newsletter from the Milwaukee Black and Blue Ball. And we just want to point out to you a few things that they included in here. So if you look at the upper left-hand side where there are pictures of wine bottles, you can imagine that to be information on their $30,000 wine pull, which guests really look forward to year after year. And then if you look at the next section with a picture of a cell phone, this is where they included information on text to bid for their auction so that guests knew to bring their cell phones fully charged to the event so that they were ready to participate in the silent auction. And then in the center column, they highlighted one of their sponsors, McLean Fogg, and you can see a photo of one of their executives there along with Regan. And then finally, in the far right-hand column at the bottom, there's a photo of Regan and an MDA mission moment to remind guests why it's so important that they contribute to and attend the Black and Blue Ball. Next, we're going to switch gears a little bit and talk about guest registration at your event. And guest registration is one of the first encounters that guests will have at your gala, and we only have one opportunity to make a great first impression. So first things first, registration should be easy to find and navigate, and therefore you want to have good signage and friendly volunteers to direct your guests towards the registration area, particularly if it's a little bit difficult to find. The one thing you do not want is any long lines. So you want to have enough Q-Check machines as you see fit. And as a reminder, the Q-Checks are the credit card swipers that we use along with MaestroSoft. And typically we recommend at least one Q-Check machine per 100 people. Remember that you'll also need one laptop computer per Q-Check, and you can be creative in how you locate and secure those laptops. And then registration volunteers should be pleasant and knowledgeable about your gala. We recommend providing scripts to your volunteers to ask the guests for their credit cards to be put on file. We want to get as many credit cards up front as possible so that checkout will run smoothly. So the script you give them should say something to the effect of, "Can I please get your credit card so we can complete your registration?" That way it doesn't sound like an option. Also, volunteers should have a basic fact sheet at guest registration because they're often the ones that get asked questions such as, what time does the silent auction close? What time is dinner starting at? Where are the bathrooms, etc. So we want our volunteers to have all of the information they need to be able to answer our guest questions. And then lastly, registration supervisors should be in a designated area off to the side where they can handle any challenging situations or guests. For example, if the volunteer can't find someone on the registration list, or if you have a sponsor come up asking to make a last-minute change to their table, these types of situations should be referred to the registration supervisors, who are MDA staff that are familiar with both the event and the guest list. And then on this next slide, you'll see some photos of guest registration from the Milwaukee Black and Blue Ball, which is an event with 1,200 guests where registration runs extremely smooth. And if you look at the photo on the left, what you'll notice is the very large signage which guests can see as they enter the event. And you need to have signage placed high enough that it can be seen over the volunteers who are seated at registration and also the guests who are standing registering. In the photo on the right, you can see that there are plenty of volunteers and laptops for the amount of guests. As I mentioned earlier, the Milwaukee Black and Blue Ball is a 1,200-person event, and therefore they had 12 laptops and volunteers greeting the guests, swiping their credit cards with the Q-checks, and an additional 12 runners there assisting each of those volunteers. Next, we're going to talk about gathering guest contact information. MaestroSoft, when well executed, is a great and effective tool for running your events year after year. But in order for everything to go smoothly, staff need to make learning Maestro a priority and then practice using it so that you're experts by the time your guests are arriving at your event. And there are a few different methods to collect guest contact information to make it as seamless as possible before the night of the event. And that includes everything from their name to email address, mailing address, cell phone number, etc. So before the event, you can obtain your guest lists from your table captains or the main contact for each of your sponsorships. And one effective way to get this done is to have the table captains send out a Google Doc form where everything can then be captured in an Excel spreadsheet that you simply then transfer all of the names and information from and into Maestro. You'll want to do as much gathering of guest name and information as possible before your event because that means that you'll have less to do at the event. But for those whose information you do not have, at the event you'll need to get the guests to complete registration cards so that we have their information both for that night and for future years in Maestro. And one way we recommend getting guests to complete that information is to let them know that we'll be doing a random door prize drawing from those that are completing registration cards night of. And with the actual registration cards that you gather that night, you can just take those back to your office and enter any of the missing guest information following the event. You want to do that so you have it for future years and you will not need to ask those guests to fill out registration cards in the future. But please know that it does not need to be done in Maestro night of.
From the moment your guest gets out of their car, if there is valet parking, or walks as they walk through the front door of the venue, they should be transported to feel like they are in the theme or flavor of the event. Whether it's a Hollywood, Paris, the Riviera, Las Vegas, the circus, whatever the theme is, your guests should feel like they are transported to that theme. Here are some great photos from successful themed galas. In the upper left-hand corner, you have a photo of a living table. Yes, that is a person in the middle of the table. At this gala, Anheuser-Busch sponsored the silent auction, and these are the tables that had some of the silent auction items on them. How cool is that? The photo in the upper right-hand corner is from the Passport to a Cure, where the theme was Road Trip USA. In the background, you can see there's a Las Vegas sign, and then in the front, you can see that there's a wigwam display. Very cool and very clever. Looking across the bottom, in the left-hand corner, you'll see a Harley-Davidson motorcycle from, yes, you guessed it, a black and blue ball. What would a black and blue ball be without motorcycles? In the middle on the bottom is a photo of a team mascot from a muscle team event. Many times, team mascots are as popular as some of the athletes. The mascots are always a favorite amongst our MBA buddies. The last photo on the bottom is also from a muscle team. Here they created a money-making attraction around a sports bobblehead that were donated by the professional baseball team. The bobbleheads were then partnered up with donated Citgo gas cards and sold as part of a raffle. The MDA team did a great job by incorporating the theme of the event into their attractions. Your guest invitation is the first clue to what the guests can expect when they arrive at your event. It gets your guests excited about attending, and it tells your guests a little bit about the story behind your event. And here we have 3 examples. The one on the left is from the new Muscle Team suite. The one in the middle is from a Harley-Davidson Black and Blue Ball that was all about gears and building strength. And the one on the right is a Passport to a Cure that's traveling to London. In Houston, the MDA staff create elaborate invitation packages that are then hand-delivered to corporate sponsors or the table captain to get them excited about the upcoming event. What person wouldn't love to be surprised at the office with one of these great-looking invitation packages? The one on the far left was the Passport to a Cure with the Chinese theme. The one in the middle on the top was the Road Trip to a Cure, a very cool car with a map and some other goodies. Right below that was the year that they had dancing dogs from America's Got Talent. And then on the far right, the team had a British London theme. But what cool corporate sponsor invitations.
And some lasting impressions can be made through the entertainment and the decor that you have to go along with the theme of your gala. So next, I'm going to ask the Houston Director of Business Development, Carla Hoskin, to share some of the great entertainment that they've had at their Passport to a Cure events.
Yay. Well, thanks so much. Well, we've had quite a blast each year trying to pick our brains and top the entertainment from each of the previous years. So this year and the past 2 years, we've really, I feel like, with our team and Chris, we've outdone ourselves. So one thing that we're fortunate to have is a great relationship with the entertainment company that we work with. We've worked them for the past 7 years, so they know us very well and work well with us. But in tandem with the theme, we try to identify entertainment that will allow us to give vendors, partners, potential sponsors the opportunity to have naming rights on that entertainment. So this past year, 2015, our theme was Sideshow Spectacular. It was kind of like a vintage carnival or circus, and we had various entertainments that you might think of when you think of old-fashioned circus, like the strongmen, the sword swallowers. Those were some of the entertainment elements in the pre-function, and in the ballroom we had an awesome pickpocket comedian, and what was so great about him, he was very interactive. So he went into the audience and pulled guests up on the stage, and it was amazing, and everyone was very entertained, everyone was laughing, and you were just waiting to see what he was doing next. Last year, the Passports Got Talent, we had the Latte Dogs from America's Got Talent, and actually we had 3 acts from America's Got Talent. So that's a popular show. People know it very well, and so if you've seen something, an act on television, and to know it's going to be at an event you're going to, hopefully that is very attractive, which we felt it was. And then in 2013, the theme was Cirque de la MDA, so it was a playoff of like the Cirque performances. And so at that event, we had various we had an aerial artist, we had spinning cube, and then in the ballroom we had body balancers. And so I was kind of running around doing the logistical things, but when I took a moment to stop, just looking at the guests who were viewing the body balancers, I mean, they were like with their jaws open, not even eating, because the entertainment was just so amazing. So you definitely want to get entertainment that is very engaging, obviously that ties in with the theme, of course, and one that obviously your sponsors would want their name on, because throughout the venue there is signage that has the sponsor's name tied to the act. And when it's very engaging and people want to see it, they're less likely to leave before the program is over, because sometimes programs may run a little long and people tend to step out. But we've seen when we turn the lights on after the entertainment is over and they've been served their dessert, people are still lingering around. So that has just been something that we look forward to planning, and we are thinking about that from the time the current year's event is over. We're already thinking about what on earth are we going to do the next year. But for us, as I mentioned when I began, having a great relationship with the entertainment company has been huge and quite the benefit for us, because they work with us, they know how we operate, and in terms financially, they work with us as well, because we're able to keep the entertainment costs low, which also helps keeping the overall expenses for the event within the 25%. And lastly, with our relationship with the entertainment company, this year and last year, they've been able to make introductions and referrals to us for possible committee members, because they are probably one of the most well-known entertainment companies in Houston. So they provide services to many, many, many other organizations. So they know quite a few of the socialites and people you want to know in Houston. So working with, the company name is J&D Entertainment. So we've enjoyed working with them and are looking forward to working with them for the 10th Passport to a Cure in 2016.
Well, thanks so much, Carla. We can't wait to hear what you do to outdo yourself this year, because Passport is certainly known for your outstanding themes and your really engaging entertainment.
Yay,
and for the Chicago Muscle Team event last year, they also wanted to do something memorable entertainment-wise, in addition to simply having the athletes there. They wanted something that guests would talk about after the event and that they would look forward to in future years. So they brought in the Chicago Boys, which is an acrobatics group who did everything from basketball tricks to jump rope tricks and acrobatics. They were really lively and fun, and because they were a local group, it only cost them $1,500 to bring in, so it didn't break their bank. And then Lisa's going to tell you a little bit about Artbeat Live.
Yes, Artbeat Live is a entertainment that also raises money for you. Artbeat Live is one gentleman. His name is Elliot, and what Elliot does is he paints live on a canvas in front of all of your guests with big, broad strokes. Sometimes throws paint at the canvas. The canvases are usually about 4 feet by 4 feet, and creates his artwork to loud music that you can help him choose. I know in Chicago they almost annually have the Blackhawks. He does the Chicago Blackhawks logo and then does their theme song, and halfway through his painting he'll flip the artwork upside down and then you'll know what it is. You'll see that it is the Blackhawks logo. Always very popular. He can adapt whatever type of event. He's been to the Milwaukee Black and Blue Ball, where he did a motorcycle front light and engine, as well as a Green Bay Packer helmet. So a lot of fun, and people for the first time have a great time watching him and then seeing what it is he's creating, and then these pieces are live auctioned off. So there's a fee to have Elliot come to your event, but then you also have the opportunity to make some money on what he creates.
Very cool. And then next I'd like to introduce the Tulsa Executive Director, Becky Prine, to talk a little bit about what they do at their Step Up to the Plate to Cure ALS event.
Thank you. So our committee, we had done an event just for ALS for several years, and kind of a traditional event was a dinner and auction, and our committee, which is more family-driven than corporate-driven, decided we should go a different direction. So after a lot of brainstorming, we came up with the name Step Up to the Plate, and we created a vintage feeling baseball-themed event, really in honor of Lou Gehrig and that era of baseball. So our event is, the decorations are baseball, All-American themed. Fortunately, we're able to use a lot of our stuff year after year. And really the highlight of our event is our food. I have two people on the committee whose husbands own a lot of our local restaurants here in the area. So we have about every year between 9 and 12 restaurants who come on board, and they create a gourmet version of ballpark food. And all the guests are served bite-sized portions. It is a mingling event for that part of the event, so they are able to go up to their tents and try different food. The great thing is the restaurants do it for free. So we feed 350 people at our event at no cost, which is really incredible for our expense ratio. They love creating the food. We do nachos, burgers, hot dogs, potatoes, barbecue, but it's fancy. They do it gourmet. We serve our food in paper food boats, just like you were at the ballpark. And they restaurants have a great time. The guests love it, and they actually get to vote for their favorite ballpark food. Along with that, we have celebrity local judges who judge the food, and so we have like 3 or 4 categories plus the guest favorite. We bring the chefs up all up on stage when we start our program and announce the winners, and they love it. And they win like hot dog their trophies that have fake hot dogs on them, and they love them. So we've done this event. We started this event in 2012, and it's very different. So I definitely raised a lot of eyebrows whenever I came back to the office and said what this initial idea was, but the community loves it, and the committee loves it, and it's been very successful for us. So I would just definitely encourage you to think outside the box a little bit and don't be afraid to try different things. And this was a great way, again, for us to get our food for free. So we have, on average, if we have a $125,000 grossing event, our expenses are typically around $12,000. So.
Well, that is awesome. Thank you so much to Carla and Becky for sharing those great ideas. And hopefully this got some of you on the phone excited about some of the ways that you can incorporate that fun, lively, engaging entertainment into your events. And on the next slide, we're going to show you some great visual examples of how people have incorporated the entertainment and theme. So in both photos on the left-hand side, you see some pictures of Cirque du Soleil style performers from the year that Passport to a Cure in Houston had the theme of Cirque de la MDA. And then on the right-hand side, in the upper corner, you can see a live band, and in the bottom corner, you can see a performer from Lion King at a Broadway-themed event. So as I'm sure you can imagine from looking at these photos, guests walked away from these events fully entertained and looking forward to seeing what that group came up with for the future years. So it definitely helps you get your guests to want to come back to the event year after year. And one additional way to incorporate your theme in your event is through your centerpieces. And here you'll see photos of centerpieces from several years of the Milwaukee Black and Blue Ball that are designed by one of their sponsors. And these centerpieces are really all unique pieces of art and are so popular that guests were actually taking them off the tables and hiding them so they could take them home with them. And now people look forward to being a table captain so that they're the one who can legitimately take the centerpiece home year after year. And then one of the most important things that you need to think about when you're planning your gala and corresponding with your guests is to always remember to talk about MDA's mission. And it really is our responsibility to make sure that each of our guests knows not only what event they are attending, but that that event is benefiting MDA. Guests should come to the gala knowing that there will be a mission moment and also that they will be asked to donate towards our mission drive, either for camp or for research, depending on the event. Before the gala, guests should hear some of the amazing MDA stories that we have in our local markets. We should let them meet some of our Goodwill ambassadors through profiles or emails, videos, so that they know why it's going to be important for them to give at the event. And then the mission moment is the time in the evening when you have the largest window of opportunity to raise the most money for MDA. We know in looking at our distinguished events and our metrics that we're making our highest percentage of income night of from our mission drives. So the bottom line here is to incorporate mission moments everywhere that you can. And we're going to take a look at that visually here on this next slide. You'll see some great examples of incorporating mission moments in your event. So in the upper left-hand corner, you see some of the great cirque performers with one of the local MDA Goodwill ambassadors. And in the two photos underneath that, you can see some of the different artwork that was auctioned off. In the center column up top, you see an MDA summer camp display, as well as a video that was playing on the TV off to the right-hand side. And then down below, you see one of our local Goodwill ambassadors talking on stage at an event. In the upper right-hand corner, those are actually bookmarks that were handwritten by local families and then tied to the bottles of wine that were sold at the wine pull. So as you can imagine, everyone that bought a bottle of wine loved getting that handwritten note from local families. And then last but not least, in the bottom right-hand corner, you can see one of the children's piece of artwork along with a bio of the child that created that art for the children's artwork auction.
Auction checkout is oftentimes the last impression that guests have from the gala. This is the impression that they can either make or break your event. Auction checkout must run smoothly without a flaw. You need to have enough well-trained, pleasant volunteers. Maestro is key to so many of our galas. Staff should know the system and how it works. Staff need to practice in their offices before the event and run through every scenario that is a possibility. When printing receipts, although we hope that 100% of your guests have swiped a credit card at guest registration, there may be a few guests that you'll need to collect payment from. A simple way to know who those guests are will be by the color of paper their receipt is printed on. For example, green paper for Q checkout, that means green is go, they can pick up their items, they're all paid, and yellow paper for no Q check and that you still need to collect payment for their items. Have all packaging materials and supplies to adequately wrap up all of the items in your auction. Make sure bubble wrap, boxes, tape, bags, volunteers to help guests to their cars if their items are too big. Guests have purchased these items and want to take them home safely and easily. It's suggested that you have an MDA table or area where guests who are having problems or challenges can move to so that they aren't in the mainstream of all the other guests. Consider having a cookie or candy tray for the guests. Who wouldn't be happy if they were being offered a complimentary treat while they're waiting in line? Make sure there's an MDA staff person in the auction checkout area who can make important decisions if needed. If you can manage the process, consider delivering the items won by a guest to them at their corporate table. This is the ultimate level of service. It's always a nice touch for your guests to leave the event with a guest gift bag, swag bag, or a token of appreciation from MDA. If you're going to do this, you should begin recruiting items early. Consider the MDA Mission Moment takeaway. Could you have something designed by an MDA Goodwill ambassador? Note cards or a personal thank you from a Goodwill ambassador, a paperweight, a mouse pad, or items from your corporate sponsors. In the pictures below, on the bottom left, you'll see a delicious-looking candy apple that has a tag on it that says Cirque du Soleil MDA on it, and it was donated and sponsored by Jiffy Lube. Who wouldn't like that as a takeaway? The other photo is of reusable grocery bags that were filled with lots of groceries. The gala honoree is a grocery store, and many of the corporate sponsors were from the food industry. So each guest was given a bag of groceries at the end of the evening, and the whole theme makes perfect sense. Guest gift bags aren't a must, but they are a very nice touch to end the evening and a guest remembrance after your gala is over. The correspondence and follow-up that MDA has with guests following an event is crucial to the long-term relationship MDA has with that guest. Don't underestimate the power of reaching out to guests and staying in touch. Here are some of the very easy, no-brainer ways to thank guests and stay in touch. Again, making the MDA Gala a memorable experience for the guest. The thank you letter. If you have photos of different guests, you can send them to them. Plan ahead of time so that you get photos of the people that you definitely want to have photos of. You can create photo collages or photo cards, something memorable. It's a great addition to your normal thank you letter. And then special recognition for donations. Summer camp certificates for Send a Kid to Camp appeal. You can have your Goodwill ambassador create a personal note and then reproduce those and send them with each of the MDA thank you letters. If you have an honoree, make sure that that CEO sends a thank you note to all of their vendors. The tax deduction letter, it's available through Maestro. And then your post-event guest newsletters. Show them the highlights, include photos, recognize your corporate sponsors, have fun with it. A SurveyMonkey questionnaire. SurveyMonkey offers free surveys with 10 questions or less. Find out what your guests liked or what they would like to see different at your future event. Stay in touch with your guests on a year-round basis, especially the mid to high-level donors. The Distinguished Events Mid-Level Donor Recognition Program will be rolling out to staff in the coming months. Here's a sneak preview on how Distinguished Events will help local offices stay in touch with those very, very important mid-level donors from your galas. Who are we targeting? We'll be targeting any guest who donates $800 or more to your mission drive. How will we collect the data? We'll be looking for names, addresses, email addresses, etc. We'll either be using a national distribution or local distribution point. We're still in the process of determining what is possible and what will work best for all parties involved. It will be an email program, and we'll either be using Convio, Luminate, or another program. This is all still being discussed and being coordinated. Touch points and schedules, they will be themed and quarterly. So regardless of when your event takes place, you'll immediately be able to jump into the entire outline. There'll be something for Valentine's Day, May ALS Month, MDA Summer Camp Visitors Day, a fall MDA client story, Thanksgiving, including a message of thanks and a research tie-in. So something that will happen throughout the entire year. And the resources that are needed and that are being used, we're working with Marcom in creating some of these pieces. We're working with direct response donor care and online fundraising, again, to determine what the best ways to distribute these different touch points will be. And then the staff rollout will be coming very, very soon. And now Catherine is going to take us to the Maestro moment.
Yeah, before Catherine does that, that's Chris, and thanks, Lisa, for sharing that information. Having been in the field, as many of us have, I just want to make a comment about the mid-level donor program, and that is this information will be collected through Maestro, and the emails may be handled by national, but the mid-level gift program is a local program. So if there's any little wheel in your head thinking, yikes, you know, this is all going to go into the national mailing campaign, that's not really what this is designed for. These are tools to make it easy for you to keep track and to recommit your mid-level gifts from your gala and maybe even accelerate their participation in your event. So just wanted to clarify that.
Okay, so I've switched over here to Maestro. We're going to look at some reports and some data that you can get out of Maestro once you've completed your data entry and gone back, like Jordan said, and entered all that guest information after the event. And we can pull some really great information about who attended the event so we can get that mid-level donor information. All your reports are going to be found under 7-in-1, where you can print your general reports. And one report that most of you should be familiar with, we've tried to get them from everybody that has an upcoming event on the 1st and 15th of the month, is your auction event financial summary. And so you'll see I just typed auction event up in the search menu to kind of limit what reports I see, and that's the first one I got. And I have mine checked as a favorite because this is a report that's a great snapshot to kind of give you an idea of where you're at. If you have an ED or a DD that wants just a quick overview of how your event is doing, this is an awesome one just to send because it shows everything you're looking for. The first section is the banquet revenue by recognition level. This also is kind of known as ticket sales, and not all events are ticketed. So a lot of times this area will have zero revenue because guests are coming to the event because they've purchased a sponsorship or a table, and that income is noted elsewhere. But for those of you who do have ticketed events, you can capture all that revenue at this first section. Your table sponsorship revenue is next. So as you sell those tables, it's going to show how many you have sold. And as you start assigning your guests to seats at those tables, it's going to let you know how many people are seated at your table. And one thing I failed to mention for this top part, it's going to show you how many people you've registered to come to your event. So you'll know whenever you're done at the end of the night, if you have some leftover registration cards, how many people you registered to come versus how many people actually attended the event. The auction revenue by auction, this is going to show you how much your fund an item, which is also known as your mission drive raised. It shows you how much your silent and live auction did, and that's going to be based upon what you go back and enter as long as you break up these categories. And if you have anything like they sell some table centerpieces on this one in particular, anything auction related, if you have a camper art auction, all that information is going to be captured under this auction revenue by auction. On the next page is going to be your store revenue, so any revenue enhancers you do, a wine pool, a raffle, a lucky locker, it's going to let you know how many of those you sold and how much it raised. And then your sponsorship revenue, as you sell those sponsorships, you're presenting your silent auction sponsor, whatever, you can set up all those levels. It'll tell you how many you sold and how much revenue that raised for you. And then this one is an example of what we shouldn't see for direct expenses. We have special MDA expenses that Maestro has built into the system just for us, and I'll show you how you get those in just 1 second. But once you set those up, all your direct expenses are going to show as SEDB expenses just as they would in FMS. So when you are inputting your expenses, it's great to do a budget amount. We ask that you please put in the actual because that's going to give you a real net number of where your event is. It can be a guesstimate, but without filling out that actual amount, you won't know. But you can always subtract it from the budgeted subtotal at the bottom. And the last page is going to be your indirect expenses. Depending on how many you have, they might all be on one page. This is where you'll enter your postage, any shipping, and your Maestro license, and then you'll get this event total. So this is why I say right here to please put in your actual figures, even if they're just a guesstimate of how much your expenses are going to be so that they'll calculate. Because even though you saw they budgeted $18,000 in expenses, none of that reflected over here. So always put in just your best guess, and then it's going to give you your real net number for how your event is doing. So for the expenses, just really quickly, there is a narrated PowerPoint of this on the Resource Center if you need to go back and see. But you would go to 4 and 2 to enter your budget and expenses. And up here in this corner, it just is a plain white text. You can double click, and it's going to ask you, do You want to delete all your current expense categories and replace them with the MDA default list. When you tell it yes, you see right now I have miscellaneous, services, marketing, you can see those in the background. When I tell it yes, my new expense categories are the MDA expenses. You're welcome to go to tab 2 where you enter the expense category budgets and add in some additional indirect expense categories, but all the direct expense categories are already on here for you. So that's going to make pulling reports and finding your net number a lot easier to manage. Just a few more reports I want to show you, and I'll give it back to Jordan, is the who bought what reports. Those are great for looking at those mid to high level donors and knowing what they spent. And you can look by a bidder number, you can look in a descending order with their contact information, by last name, by table. There's all kinds of ways we can do this. I'm just going to look at this detail by descending with contact. And it just started with these people right here, Alec and Heather Bristol. I have their address, and it shows me how much they spent. I can see these right here were silent auction items. I can see they made a cash donation. I'm sorry, these are packaged items. So you can just see, I see right here that Bill and Claudia won the live auction of the vacation in Mexico. So it's just a great way to see how much your guests spent and keep track of those mid to high level donors. And then last, I do want to tell you, when you are finished with your event and you have backed up those databases and saved them, we ask that you send those to us, your national director, and then myself, Catherine Anzelka, because we have had databases get corrupted, or if you have staff turnover, that way there's always somebody that has a copy of those databases and we can keep those in a safe place. So if you guys need any additional Maestro help, you're welcome to contact me, or you can also go to the maestrosoft.com. Right here, I put the link back up there, maestrosoft.com/MDA, and log in with your license information, and there's great training videos. Maestro does weekly trainings for night of event training. They do weekly text-to-bid trainings, and I recently saw there's several pre-recorded trainings for Maestro Web, little training videos if anybody out there is using that. So with that being said, I will turn it back over to Lisa.
Thank you, Catherine, for the quick run-through of Maestro. And thank you to everybody for participating in today's WebEx. I'm sure all of you will agree with me when they say that we're so impressed with the creativity and imagination involved with all of these different events. MDA is really lucky to have such a talented staff employed by the association. We do some really great work, and I think with distinguished events, you put on so many different hats and just some really good information shared. And we look forward to sharing more with you. This was a WebEx, and it will be recorded and up on the Resource Center in the coming days. But wanted to remind everybody that our next National Monthly WebEx is scheduled for Tuesday, September 1st at 3 p.m. Central Time. And the topic of that WebEx will be, can I please get a hand here? And we'll be discussing volunteers and how volunteers can help you, recruiting volunteers, training and managing volunteers, and how to hang on to great volunteers. So all things volunteers on Tuesday, September 1st. I'll just ask Catherine if there are any questions in the chat box.
No, ma'am.
All right. Well, then again, thank you to everybody for your time, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.